Very good morning, children. Today in my geography class, I will be starting with a new topic as land utilization. Children, by now you must be well aware of the terminology like resources, its relation with development, various classification of resources, what is resource planning, how resource planning is implemented in our country, and what are the various ways of resources which are found in our country. Today, moving ahead to a new topic, our topic of the day is land utilization. Land utilization basically means how do we utilize our land. Beta, you all know that land is a resource. Out of various land forms, we find like the mountains and the plateaus, the land is the most important component of human being. How land is being important? Land is important because all the houses, building, offices, etc. are found more in the land plain area as compared to the mountains and the plateaus. Land utilization basically means how we can utilize the land for our daily needs. But when we talk about land utilization, we find that there are various aspects of land utilization. In this video, I will be talking about farming as a center of land utilization. There are basically 5 classification of land utilization. Children, you have to listen this terminology very carefully because all the 5 terminology looks quite confusing. For clarity, please refer to your NCERT book, topic land utilization of the chapter resources and development. Talking about the first classification of land utilization, we find that the first point is forest. Out of 3.28 square kilometer, the total land area of our country, we find that around 30%, 27 to 30% till today is an area which is covered with forest. These forests are the inhabitants of animals today also, as a result of which this land is not utilized for the cultivation or growing up of the crops. This is an area where we find large forests, large land flora as well as fauna in large amount, but cultivation is not done for the people for their daily consumption of food grains. The second part of the land utilization is land not available for cultivation. What does cultivation stands for? Cultivation basically means that land in which the farmer cannot grow any food grain. Now the question arises, why does the farmer need a land? The farmer need a land to do farming, so to grow food grains to satisfy the hunger of the entire country. These food grains are required for food consumption to satisfy the hunger of the entire land or for the entire country and its people. So when we talk about land not available for cultivation, we find that it is divided into 2 types. The first point of land not available for cultivation is barren and wasteland. What does barren means? Barren means a land which is not fit anymore for growing up of crops. Why it is not fit for growing crops? Because with our tenure, we find that if the farmer keeps on growing crops at a fixed land for more than 15 to 20 years, we find that the soil loses its fertility. and with a great span of growing the food crops on the same piece of land, we find that that land does not grow the very fertile crops. As a result of which, in agricultural term, we call it as a barren land. The second added feature to land under cultivation is wasteland. As the word suggests, the land which is waste. Why it is waste? It is waste because it is not growing any food crops or not any farming or cultivation can be done in it. In geographical term, we call it as wasteland. This is a land which is not used for or which is not suitable for agriculture. Agriculture basically means growing of crop. The second classification for land not available for use is land put to non-agricultural use. Children, 2 minutes back I told you that if in a piece of land the crops are grown for a long span of time, we find that land becomes a barren land. As a result of which, after some time, this land is not fit for cultivation. This is a land which is not fit for cultivation, but does not mean that this land is a wasted land. We find people grow, people construct houses, road, etc. on agriculture, but on that piece of land. But they do not do agriculture in that barren or a wasteland. It is a land which is not fit for only agriculture, but it is suitable for growing roads, buildings, etc. So the second classification is land put to non-agricultural use, not for agriculture, apart from agriculture. I'll give you a very small example related to this particular point. Children, if suppose you are living in a home which is constructed recently, if you talk or go back to the history of that particular land in which you have constructed the house, you will find that in that piece of land, maybe 50 years back or 60 years back, that land was used for cultivation of crop. It means that land 50 years before was a land which was a cultivated land. Farmers were growing crops into it. But after the tenure of time, after quite long span of time, it turned up into a non-agricultural land and took that non-agricultural land for construction of buildings, houses, etc. The third classification of land utilization is other cultivable land. Cultivable land means what are the other land which are available to the farmer or for a country where can we cultivate our crops. Children, you know the first point of it is pastures and grazing land. As I told you that in forest the wildlife are there, animals are there. These animals and the forests have been cut down by the selfish need of the people. The population has increased, as a result of which the people have cleared all the forests and constructed houses, building to stay into it. As a result of which the land which is left now is that land which is used in the form of pastures and grazing land. Now the question arises, what is pastures and grazing land? These pastures and grazing lands are those left land which are utilized for the consumption of animals. Meaning what? All the animals, whatever they need to eat is grown in their pasture as well as grazing land. Several times you must have seen a patch of field where the goats, buffalo, etc. go to eat to satisfy their hunger, and they eat the grazing land there. They eat the grass there. This is basically termed as grazing or pasture land. So this grazing and pasture land comes under the third part of land utilization, that is the other cultivated land. The second classification of other uncultivated land is land under miscellaneous tree crops. Children, several times you must have seen that when you are traveling to any hill station, Kullu Manali, Shimla, Dalhousie, etc., you might have seen that in a piece of land there is lot of greenery and there are lot of big trees. Palm trees, etc., rubber trees, cinchona trees, etc. These are those trees which are under the miscellaneous tree crops. The farmer does not grow them. The farmer is not growing, he is not giving manures, he is not watering them, he is not giving any humus or anything to them. These are those plants which grow on their own. And during a long span of time, these small plants take the form of the trees. And they are there in this particular piece of land for years together. Until unless at times human being selfish greed does not reach there. So this is the second form, land which is under the miscellaneous trees, all those trees which are grown in this piece of land, which are those trees which grow on their own. The third point of this particular point is known as the cultivable wasteland. Wasteland. As I told you before also, a land which is waste only in terms of agriculture. We cannot grow anything. Definitely. We can grow non-agricultural crops or non-agricultural means. Construction of houses, building, factories, industries, etc. So the third classification is cultivable wasteland. That piece of land in which the agriculture is not done for more than 5 years or so. That is termed as cultivable wasteland. This is a wasteland in which the farmer has not approached or has not grown for more than 5 years. The fourth classification of land utilization is fallow land. This is basically divided into two parts. Please children, listen very carefully. Here it is very important for you to listen very carefully. The fourth part is talking about fallow land. This fallow land is divided into two parts. The first part is current fallow land. Current means recently. Not very far off. Current. That piece of land in which one or less than 1 year there is no cultivation or growing up of crops in that piece of land, it is known as current fallow land. Several times farmers intentionally leave their land and go to some other land or perform some other tasks apart from agriculture so that the soil retain back its fertility which has been lost at a tenure of time when the farmers was growing the growing the crops in that piece of land. So that land which is left for 1 year, more than 1 year and less than 1 year, it is known as current fallow land. The second classification of fallow land is other than current fallow land. This is that land which is left for 1 to 5 years. This is that piece of land where the farmers intentionally leave that land not to grow anything so that soil retain its fertility back, and if they are not retained back, they leave it for a long tenure of time. That tenure can be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years or 5 years. The last but not the least will come to the last point, that is known as net sown area. Net sown area means total crop which is grown once in a year. If suppose there are small piece of land, suppose 2 hectare piece of land, and we grow suppose tomato, brinjal, etc., that is known as the net sown area. Hope I am quite clear with my explanation of land utilization. Thank you very much.